So I came up with this idea, definitely Metal Emo Elves. I sent it off, the script off to every publisher that I know that were accepting submissions, and everybody said no. Everybody said no.
Death Metal Emo Elves.
Okay, so
how that came about.
Yeah, so it was a story concept that I came up with. Yes, I came up with the name first, and I think I might have even maybe about 2 years ago wrote. So I've been drawing these books that are kind of young reader kind of level, which I find easier than drawing comics. Like comics, you're drawing like 6 panels a page. This one you're drawing just one illustration a page in black and white. So it kind of is it's a book that kind of suits my style of drawing pretty well. So I came up with this idea, definitely Metal Emo Elves. I sent it off, the script off to every publisher that I know that were accepting submissions, and everybody said no. Everybody said no. So
hold on. So here's the thing. Like, this is Dean Rankine. Worked on such and such and such and such. All right.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And this is the thing. So people think name will open all the doors, and here you are.
Yeah. I've never found doors automatically open for me like that. Like, again, I might crack the door open a little bit. They might look at it a little bit more carefully, but that's kind of it. So yeah, everybody said no. Then last year I started drawing it. So I'm just going to start to draw it. So once a day I will draw a page, at least a page a day, and continue to send them off, the script off to publishers. But this time I had illustrations to go with it.
Yeah.
Send it off. I reckon I got to page maybe 76 of it. Hadn't heard back. Basically, am I just
76 days later? You haven't still had
or pages later, I was like, am I just stupid? Is this like a really dumb idea? But what I found was online, I've got some just great people online on Instagram and Facebook who are really very supportive. And people are saying, look, worst scenario, if you're self-published, we'll back it. If you do a Kickstarter, we'll back it.
Yeah.
I've never done a Kickstarter. So people were really supportive. So I kept plugging away. And I sent it off to, again, I'm probably up to 100 pages. The whole thing's like 230 pages.
Yeah.
I sent it off to a publisher called Redback, and they're a Sydney-based company, and they mainly do those kind of like, those non-fiction books like, hey, this is Auckland. Auckland has a population of blah, 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 this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they said yes to it. So, but they did say they would like it to be as a series. So I finished it off and drew it, and it was published this year. And it looks like that. Death
nice
Metal,
and shiny.
Yeah, nice and shiny.
Bring it forward a bit. There we go.
Emo Elves. They're the elves. If you're familiar with the band Kiss, this is like a parody of the Kiss album, and inside. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the pages look like that. So not a lot of writing, mostly drawing.
So it's a light novel.
And
it's what the Japanese call a light novel.
Oh yeah, something like that. Yeah. So it's been fantastic. So and it's interesting. I think by not getting the deal right away, and by showing a page over like on social media, that actually had got more of a following, that people were keen on it. That once it was out, a lot of people picked it up, and so that's book 1. I wrote and drew book 2. I think that comes out in March, maybe. And I've written book 3, and I'm hoping to get some feedback and get on to drawing that relatively soon. So I get paid on the back end, so I'm hoping it goes okay. yeah, so I appreciate it's partly painful and partly privilege that I've been able to have the time to be able to do it and get paid on the back end. But it'd be nice for it to make some money,
Yeah, so this is a whole year's worth of work that while your wife's been working full time, while you've been working part time, doing a page a day, putting in the hard yards, putting in the slog, and nobody wanted it. All the people that you knew out there, big names.
Yeah. So it was like I did feel stupid, and because you're kind of putting yourself out there. Is this just like a dumb idea? But I feel really good about it. It's one of the things I'm most proud of that I kept.
Oh no, what I meant was like the fact that despite all that, despite all that, and this is the part that people don't understand. Out there don't understand what that goes into it. You're like, despite all that, you kept at it, you kept at it, you kept at it. 100 days later, and so on. Somebody who doesn't even publish the work that you do, graphic novels and stuff, decides, yeah, we want it. Yeah. But hey, Dean, have you thought about doing this? We will only pick you up if you do a series.
Yeah.
And then you got to go back and go. Then you got to go. What's the next story? Have you thought about the next story, or were you just thinking one and done?
No, so I hadn't. I thought it was one and done, and I hadn't. The second book is a lot of fun, and so that was. Look, if they want more elf books, I'm going to draw more elf books. Yeah. That I love the characters. I love, I do like the concept. It is interesting though when it comes to things like success. Like people go, "Oh, great! You were successful because you got a book published, right?" Yeah. Which is fantastic. But it may not have been. I might have just drawn the whole thing. I still think I would have self-published it. But it would have, got into as many hands as it has. So I do. I feel philosophize about success, because I think the success part for me is the keep going part, because that's the part that you have control of. Everything else you just don't have any control at all. There's no way. You can write a book, you can draw, illustrate a book, but there's no guarantee that a publisher will pick it up.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just have to go through the process. You know how like Alcoholics Anonymous have that the mantra about looking after your side of the street, and I think when it comes to creative pursuits, that's very much it as well. Like, what can I do for success? I can improve my skills. I can write the story. I can put it out there. I can be brave. I can talk on podcasts. I can do these things that I can do from my side, and hopefully something will give on the other side. And generally speaking, it has worked out for me in those kinds of ways, but it's never easy. I read a lot of those how to draw comic books when I was a kid, and one of them would talk about the business side and talk about then the snowball effect happens. So you get that gig and then this gig, and then the snowball, then there's all this other work that you will get like a snowball, and that has never ever worked for me. I have to like hustle every time, each and every time. And that's exhausting, because you just sometimes you think, I just wish this was easier. I would just love to be able to just write the book, have it picked up, have it published, nice and clean. But it's never, my experience, it has never been like that. Always pushing. So yeah, I think I guess my advice for any sort of like young creators out there is very much about that being determined, being brave, putting yourself out there, and that you just keep pushing, keep inching toward your ultimate goals, because it's not really about drawing in some ways. I know I've said it a couple of times. I'm an okay artist. Like, I'm not putting myself down, but I get people who come up to me at conventions all the time, and their sketchbooks are amazing. Their work is stunning, but somehow then they don't do anything with it. You know, there's not going to be a magic thing. Like if you want to draw comics, then you have to draw comics, not just
right.
I've created this world in my sketchbook. You have to actually draw things and put it out there, send it to publishers and that type of thing. I just think any success that I've had is just because I'm really stubborn. You know, not because I'm more skilled than the other person. And it was interesting you were saying before about your view on sort of like the latest comics aren't being up to par as some of the older ones. But I think that to be a successful comic artist is very much about, can you work with others? Can you produce the work on time?
Right.
And that it doesn't you might get these artists, and I've seen it happen, who are incredible artists, but they cannot meet a deadline. Some artists, they maybe could get away with it, but most can't. You have to be, top tier kind of person who go, oh yeah, I'll need another month for a publisher to say, oh, no problem. That just
we'll find someone else who can do it on that. That was one of the things I was going to talk about. Like I had a long conversation with, this is a few years back, maybe 2018, with an artist. He said, like, I got offered to do this, like on a cartoon thing on a newspaper, and they basically wanted me to know if I could keep doing it every week. He said, basically, I did it for a couple of weeks, and then they offered it because they realized that I could keep doing it. Whereas other people dropped off because they couldn't keep on deadlines. I kept meeting the deadlines. And then I got offered this other thing. Then I kept meeting the deadlines because I was expected to do that, and I kept doing it. And he said, now I'm doing this because I kept meeting deadlines. And you're correct there, there is, working with artists, I realized that some have different ways of working and some have different ways of working. Some will just keep getting on time. Others will need a bit of nudging and so on because their art styles takes more time. I mean, if you're doing somebody who's like, say, doing an anime style and someone who's doing like, say, top tier DC style, something like, say Frank Miller, Frank Miller, or say Jim Lee, that sort of, you can't say, well, this guy is doing it in a day and you're taking a week. Why aren't you doing it in a day? Kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and I think sometimes, like, you might need to make some sacrifices. I know that, like, I can generally, I can generally pencil a page in a day. Sometimes it depends on what it is. I have a very cartoony style. But I know that, look, I might look at a page and go, oh, gee, this is not quite right. But sometimes you go, look, I've got a deadline and I need to keep going. And you'll go, okay, this will have to do. And some people might not even notice the thing that's bugging me. But, you do the best you can within the time limit. Okay, it's the best I could within that. Now I have to move on to the next page because I have to do the best I can within that time limit to get that one done as well. It's always a bit of a balance. I used to hate my work. I used to look back and hate it. I'm a little bit nicer to myself now that I can do work and go, oh, okay, it's fine, or I don't dislike it now. My really, really old stuff I can't look at, but my newer stuff I'm like, okay, this is a little bit better. I think artists have two issues. One of them is that we compare ourselves to other artists. And the other issue is that we have an image in our head about what art should look like. And when we produce that work and it doesn't match that image, then we have this frustration because it's not working out how we want it to. So I try to be a little bit, kinder to myself that I know that that's happening, that it's never going to be exactly how I have it pictured in my head.
Yeah, we as creators, we're very critical of our own work, never mind anybody else, because we're always struggling because it's a passion thing that we're creating and something that we're doing it out of our own self. And, we're very critical. I mean, like I've talked about, like, having all these voices in our head going, oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. Oh, nobody would like that, or maybe if you try that, you might like that. And that struggle before you even, as you're trying to work at it and talking about how AI takes all that away, let's talk about the actual book itself, and how it came about, the idea, and what is it about, and a short bio without giving away any plots and all that.
Well, it's really bad because they'll go, "Oh, how did I get the idea?" And honestly, I can't remember how I got the idea. And I know it was like what I tend to do is I do like little scribbles, and you might have oh, that sounds kind of cool, and it could have these characters, and it kind of just built from there. I knew. So what the book is basically about is it's about like in Elf Town, they all play polka. With accordion music, the polka style music, and that's all they have. And then Emo the elf is introduced via his grandmother to Elvish Paisley, who is in a retirement home, and he used to rock. So he makes this discovery that elves didn't just play polka music, but they used to rock. And he convinces his old polka band to join forces, and they become a death metal band, and have the full makeup and rock on. This is them in their full makeup there. So it's a fun book. It's not. It's kind of particularly sort of reluctant readers, I think, would dig it. And the second book is Death Metal Emo Elves and the Magic Pick of Awesomeness. And so that was a lot of fun to draw as well. Look, they're not particularly deep, but it is. I guess the underlying message is about being yourself, following your passions. Even if people disagree with you, that's okay. They're fun little books.
I kind of like the second one. The title reminds me of Pick a Destiny.
Yeah.
That whole thing is like Pick a Destiny. I think like just the thing about marketing side of things. If you market it as a light novel, because that's what like the Japanese would, they got the manga with the full-on comic book, but then they have the light novel with a picture and some text. It took me ages to find out what a light novel was, and that's basically what this is. It's like it's what I used to read as a kid. Obelix and those things. Make it easier because sometimes, like you said, reluctant readers. Kids who don't want to read the whole book of text are able to quickly read a couple of lines of text and get the story and stuff. And I think light novels are amazing ways to get young kids into reading. I mean, as well as comics. Comics are amazing medium for literature and art.
Yeah, sorry for cutting you off. It's interesting as a writer because I wrote all my Simpsons comics and everything. Basically, most of the things I've worked on, generally I've written a fair bit of it. But writing something like this has very much felt like I was writing a comic because there isn't that much dialogue per page. It's really light on, and the pictures are very much helping to tell the story. I do. Even though it's a novel, has a comic feel to it. Yeah,
because art is there, and I mean, there. I mean, is there speech bubbles or is it just text? And
there are speech bubbles. I couldn't help it. So it's just kind of how I like to write. Let me pull it over here. Oh, there we go. So your speech bubbles, that kind of thing. It's kind of like what I fall back onto. So I felt really privileged to be able to do it like that. So I'm hoping that kids like.
I think the interesting thing here is like the fact that someone in your own country picked it up, a publisher in your own country picked it up.
Yeah.
Something like reminds me of that. Like a physician isn't accepted in his own country, right? He's got to make it somewhere else before he's accepted back home. Yet you have already, someone locally has picked it up and said, "Hey, we're happy to go with you. Here's Dean Rankine, our own local artist, writer, who's got a book out, and we're happy to get behind him." Usually, it's really hard for that to happen. They want you to be known way everywhere before they actually pick you up.
I think what this is the benefit of having to worked on international IP like I have, that you're able to, you sort of bring that with you. So I don't know if this is I feel that maybe I may not have got this if I hadn't done the stuff I had previously. Like that, again, like, Simpsons, Underdog, Oggy and the Cockroaches. Okay, means this person has some kind of street cred and is able to maybe do this, that we'll back it. It's not like, publishers have to put a fair bit of money into producing a book. So
especially that size, right? 260 pages.
So I think that I don't know. I'm hoping that I get some money out of it and they get some money out of it, and it's all like kind of a positive experience. That's my hope.
Right. So let's talk about this publisher and where can they, how do people get your books? Because I mean, we've been talking about the book, but like, how do people get a hold of it?
So you can order Death Metal Emo Elves online, anywhere. If you just like, so it's I don't think it's in bookshops. But book depository, anything like that. If you want a free shipping, you can do it like that. But so if you just Google Death Metal Emo Elves and maybe Dean Rankine, it'll come up. And so Redback Publishing is the publisher. It's all over the place. So you could definitely pick it up if you're interested. So thank you. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. So and finishing off, like I was just wondering, like, I mean. How many years have you been doing art? I mean, like, as a professional, not like just like
So I've always had at least a part-time job, and I've never been able to make ends meet otherwise. And I started at 1991. I think it was my first kind of gig at sort of published work. I started doing we have these magazines that they had at schools. So they're school magazines. They were called Pursuit and Challenge. I started there. Then I worked on kids magazines that were at the supermarket. They were called Mania and D-Mag. I'm not sure if you had them over
I'm
there.
I'm sure every child knows that because I've seen those right here at our supermarket, right?
That's how I got Simpsons. So I've been working right along and just like little bits and pieces that no one would have heard of. And then I was doing those magazines. The work dried up. I went to my local shopping centre, the supermarket, to see what was there. I picked up a Simpsons comic. It all looked really good, except for there was this one page that was kind of off model. And I was inspired to think, like, I could just about be the worst Simpsons artist who, like, did like, because it all looked really good, but I reckon I could get to the point, if I worked hard, I could get to the point where I could be the worst one. And I did. So at the time, they were accepting submissions online.
Yeah.
So you could email them. So I emailed them this like a story. And they got back to me and started using my work. It was mainly backup stories. But I did some main stories as well, and I did it for about 8 years. So over time, I worked hard to get my artwork to be more on model, because at the start it was really, really not. And I still don't really understand why they said yes, but they did, and that was very much life-changing. I think I'm always, in some ways, always going to be known as the Simpsons guy. There's nothing I'm going to ever do that I could imagine that would be bigger than The Simpsons. And I feel very privileged to have had that. It's a really nice IP to work on. They're really good people to work for. So the comic is finished now. But it would have been something that I would just worked on until I died, I think. But in saying that, I've tried to be this sounds a bit dicky, but a good ambassador for the brand that I've worked on. That if people coming to up to me at a convention, I try to be a good person and not awful. But yeah, so it's been but it has helped to open doors for all the other stuff that I've worked on.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know, the elves, partly inspired by that in some ways. Like, I don't know, generations on, I get to draw this, which is really cool.
Yeah. something that you actually own yourself. And I feel, I mean, like every artist kind of like wants to be able to produce their own thing that they put their name to that's recognized as yours. One of the things I was thinking about here was like, because of the style of art, it could easily transpire to like animation shorts, animation series.
Look, I would love that. Yeah.
That I mean, it's something that you know would really be amazing if that door opened in that way. Because
I would love like a death metal emo elves Saturday morning cartoon would just be amazing. I think that would be very cool, and that would be you know. And I think I guess that's how it happens in some ways, that you have to have an IP out there that people start to know and like, you know. So fingers crossed. Here's hoping.
I hope all the best for this book, and thank you for talking to us about AI and as an artist, you know, and also we got a local viewpoint from Shane as well, and I just appreciate hearing from someone who's creative. Like, I mean, I'm looking at it, I was like, it was 91, that's 22 years of being a professional artist. You've toured all over the place, you know, you worked on so many big projects and such. It's and now you've got your own work, and the fact that you're doing your own work, it's just amazes me that you know that the hardships, as you mentioned, you know, like and the things and stuff. Yet people are able to get your book, and I'm excited about that. That Death Metal Emo Elves is out there, and you know, and that hopefully people would see this and will support that and order the book online. But I'm going to give you like 5 minutes to say your final piece, and then we'll come back and say goodbye to everybody from there. So,
final piece, I don't know. AI is, I think it's scary. I think it's immoral. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to just to be able to change the current system. I'm hoping that artists can be valued for the work that we do. I think it's reasonable as human beings to be able to say, this is the kind of way that we want to live. This, you know, these are our values. This is where this kind of technology is not allowed, because this is a human space. I think that's the important thing. I think is just to sum up, I guess, my own career. Be stubborn. If you're wanting to have a career, then you kind of have to hustle and grind. You always have to hustle for work, and you always have to work hard. And I hope that pays off. That, you know, our work just doesn't get stolen and put into a machine, but we're able to have something left behind. I'm proud I can look back at my life and go, you know what, I did some good stuff. I worked hard, tried not to be a shitty person, and have something to show for that. I don't know. It's my words of wisdom.
Awesome, thank you. I forgot to talk about the community work you were doing with schools and stuff. So you know, if you're out there, if you're watching this from Aussie or wherever, conventions, and Dean has a great book out. It's going to be a series. So if you're able to, please invite Dean along to the conventions. If schools are looking to have something, you know, to do with that, to inspire their artists and young up and coming artists and schools and stuff, teachers, you know, I'm sure Dean's going, I'll be happy to come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Great. Thanks for your time, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Dean. All right, everybody, thank you for your time, and thank you for watching with us, and for listening to what Dean had to say, and also Shane. Ka kite anō, wherever you are. Thank you, Dean, once again. We'll catch you next time, bud.
Cheers. Thank you.